Hi, welcome to Lesson 1 of a set of keys, Part 1. Lesson 1 is concentration, control of thinking. Now, the way you do this is you imagine a simple man-made object as vividly as possible. The whole point is to find out the nature of thinking itself by evoking and testing one specific thought. For this reason, the thinking behind the object must be discoverable. Therefore, you choose a man-made object. Try and keep things simple. Practical examples are a nail, a pin, a bottle, a glass, a fork, etc. In the first phase, the control of thinking, picture the chosen object and keep it before you for a 5-minute period. In fact, this is much more difficult than you might think at first. Having imagined the object in question in this way, start to remove all the sensory aspects which belong to it one by one. For example, its shape, its colour, its weight, its smell, its taste, the sound it makes, what it feels like when it's touched, etc. Then take away the history of the object, the way it was made, even its name, until all sense aspects that belong to the thought have been totally exhausted. It is important to try and keep your thinking attention fixed at all times upon the object of your concentration. So, the duration, as I say, is a minimum of 5 minutes. A maximum should never exceed 30. The question that should be answered is, what is left after all the sensory aspects of this thought have been removed? Now, here are a few comments. First of all, a few practical tips. It's helpful to try and arrange your body so it doesn't disturb the attention that you have to direct to the thought. So an upright seated position is ideal. But too comfortable position can lead to falling asleep or daydreaming, while an uncomfortable one endlessly disturbs the awareness. At first, it can help to try and carry out this exercise in quiet surroundings. Later on, as a test for yourself, you can try it out in more varied circumstances, in the noise and confusion of everyday life. Nevertheless, this is not advisable until you've conquered some familiarity with how you're going to set about carrying it out. Try and practice the exercise for at least 5 minutes each day. If you want to, the time can be extended as an exercise in willpower, but do avoid getting overtired, so don't go beyond the half hour. Variations. Some variations are possible, but it is wise to choose the same object every day for at least 1 lunar month. This avoids getting too interested in the subject matter, which would run the risk of colouring your observations. In this way, everything then takes place as disinterestedly as possible, but your observations themselves stop any possible boredom. The object can be changed after a time, and other variations may be tried, such as imagining geometric forms like a triangle, a circle, a square, and so on. Another variation consists on concentrating on an inexistent and or even an impossible object. The point of this variation is that one is concentrating purely on thought itself at the same time as it is being examined. Despite all the above points, concentration on an object that exists in reality is the form that runs the least risk of leading anybody astray in any way. Now, here are a few notes, issues really that arise at this stage. The first group of questions is, why is the exercise so difficult? Is it me that really thinks? What happens if I stop thinking a thought? Why does thinking drift off when I stop the exercise? What moves it then? Who is in command at that time? And what does it want? What does inner freedom mean? Is this a developing condition? And here is a second group of questions. What rights do I have with regard to my own thoughts? Why do I think my thoughts are my own? If I can control them, does that make me responsible for what I think? If I don't control them, does that mean I am innocent? What does responsibility mean in ethical terms? Is ethical responsibility something that grows? Here's a third group. What experience is not brought to consciousness through thought? Can I recognize any outer object without thinking? Can I recognize any thought, feeling state or instinct without thinking, conveying it to my consciousness? Can any knowledge exist without thinking? And here is a fourth group. What am I doing in concentration? What am I imagining? Using what means? Is the means the same as the subject of the examination? Is this unique? By this time, a fifth group of questions will be appropriate. How far have I established control over thinking, in fact, since I started? Have I increased my capacity of observation? Have I increased my capacity for concentration? Am I as likely to daydream as before? Have I increased my inner freedom? Have I refined my conception of ethics? Have I started self-development? Can I go further? All the answers to all of this are made clear through practicing the exercise itself. But it is only through the following group of questions that access to the next stage is gained. What is left after all the sense aspects are gone? How do I manage to perceive it? Is this something that really exists independently of myself? Is it a force? Whose? Is it dead or alive? And there are further questions which are fairly obvious. If you are not in control of what you think, what is? Could anything that controls your thought world be human-friendly? Where is the object you imagine? If you can perceive your thought and examine it, how can this be without physical senses? If this is extrasensory perception, how come no one notices? How do you take back your thoughts? Is it worthwhile? Take back control of your thoughts. Is there any difference between thinking a bottle or thinking a nail? If we change our thinking, does this change what we perceive? What happens if we remove the grosser aspects from our thinking? Does doing this make our inner perception more accurate and more sensitive? Is there a point at which everything comes alive? And if so, how? I think it's fairly obvious at this stage that it would be very useful to take a little notebook and start making notes of your results day by day, answering each of the questions once they become relevant to you, and then you will be able to log your progress. And that is all there is in this first exercise. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. All the best.